August 29th, my parents dropped me off at the Mets building. I went downtown and I stood on some footprints and I raised my right hand. I took an oath of enlistment. I'm going to read to you what that oath of enlistment is, and I'm going to kind of break it down for you so that everybody kind of understands it. Because I think it's one of the things that's extremely misunderstood today. I said, I, Paul Curtman, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations in the Uniform Code of Military Justice, so help me God. The first part of the oath is where we swear an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies. By this oath, among other things, one can draw the conclusion that the entire purpose behind the military is to defend one thing, the Constitution.
Right.
The Constitution is the foundation to which our allegiance is anchored for military members. It should be for every American citizen.
Right.
My allegiance. Contrary to popular belief, the allegiance of military service members is not to the President. It's to the United States Constitution. It is not to any appointed or elected official, and it is most definitely not to any political party.
Right.
This notion, the first part of the oath is followed with a semicolon, which means, I didn't know this till college, but it means, pay attention, because the next thought completes the first. It says that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. So just in case there would ever be any misunderstandings or in case any alliances should ever be formed, for some reason, the oath makes it clear what orders we are to obey and who we are to follow, and it sees that we are to swear allegiance only to the same who swear allegiance to the Constitution.
Right.
No other government or governmental organization in the world, like the UN, none of them have secured to their citizens inalienable rights stated that they were given by God.
Right.
And our founding fathers said to beware of entangling alliances because alliances chip away at the sovereignty of the free nation.
Right.
Threats to our rights, our inalienable rights that we have here in America, at this time, not since the 1800s, threats to our rights have not been coming from overseas. Threats to our personal rights have been coming from Washington, D.C.
Right.
The oath goes on with the notion of the chain of command, the President, officers, and the Uniform Code of Military Justice, all of which are to be followed as long as the first two criteria are met. That they give their allegiance to the Constitution, and they swear allegiance to the same who give their allegiance to the Constitution. What this means is if our superiors are not committed to the support and defense of the U.S. Constitution, then me as a service member, I am not obligated to follow their orders.
Right.
Personal experience of mine, I was at home right after Hurricane Katrina, and I got a phone call from a commanding officer at a Marine Corps unit. And they told me that they wanted me to go down to New Orleans and help enforce interior guard. Now, the definition of interior guard is to preserve order, protect property, and enforce regulation. What I didn't know, and I didn't go because I couldn't at the time, and I wouldn't have if I had found out what was going on. The purpose of the Interior Guard at that time was, along with FBI H&R teams, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and local elected officials and local law enforcement. They're going door to door taking private citizens' firearms. That is unconstitutional. Right. And I'm a member of the Marine Corps. I still am. And I've been in for about 10 years, but I will say shame on any member of the United States military, shame on anybody in the local law enforcement, shame on any local citizens who remained silent this whole time and aided and abetted in constitutional treason.
Right. Yeah.
in this oath wraps up by saying, "So help me God." That is the source of our inalienable rights as set forth
Amen.
in our founding documents. Now, real quickly, the Constitution, what it is we're swearing allegiance to. I'll just say this. The Constitution is our security for our freedoms. It's all about the Constitution. The security of our freedoms don't lie with the President. They don't lie in the Supreme Court justices. They don't even lie in Congress. And here's another kicker. It doesn't even lie in the military. The military is there to support and defend the Constitution. The Constitution is there to help us maintain our freedoms.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson said it himself. He said, "Our peculiar security is in possession of a written Constitution. Let us not make it a blank paper by construction." In other words, he was saying, our security is in the Constitution. We should not turn the Constitution into a blank piece of paper where we might as well be being governed by a blank piece of paper. It is to be followed 100%. He went on to say, "Aware of the tendency of power to degenerate into abuse, the worthies of our country have secured its independence by the establishment of a Constitution and form of government for our nation, calculated to prevent as well as to correct abuse." 10th Amendment to the United States Constitution gives states rights. It says that all powers not directly delegated to the federal government nor prohibited to the states are given to the states or to the people to govern themselves. Someone mentioned earlier that we need to be aware and informed. It is so important. I got some sheet of paper right back here on this book table. Everybody just go pick one up. It's free. This one sheet of paper right here. If you can give me a quarter, that'd be great. Cover printing costs. But there's some legislation in here that's in Congress right now that's 100% unconstitutional. And here's one. I don't know if anybody here owns land, or you own water, if you have a pond or anything. But there's legislation pending right now that's going to amend a piece of 30-year-old legislation. It's really short. It only takes one paragraph because all they're doing is amending an older piece of legislation. But they're turning government ownership of navigable, sorry to say, thank you, waters to all waters of the United States, which means all waters of the United States are now under federal control for their regulation and their ownership, which means they can also tax it if they want to.
Groundwater.
Everything, all water within the borders of America. It's going to be under. There's a lot of unconstitutional treaties going on right now. With the United Nations, even with Mexico, with Canada, there's a lot going on. People need to be aware of it. They need to be informed about it. Because what it's going to do is it's going to chip away at our sovereignty, and that chips away at our freedoms.
Right.
But the Constitution, it's also our recovery. Jefferson went on to point out that human nature will drive men into corruption when he said, "Aware of the tendency of power to degenerate into abuse, the establishment of a Constitution for our nation is calculated to prevent as well as to correct abuse. The Constitution may be violated in moments of passion or delusion, yet they furnish a text to which those who are watchful may again rally and recall the people," which is what we're doing here today.
Right.
Rallying and recalling to the Constitution. So my question right now, for a lot of people, is for us to think about is, where is our allegiance? I'm guilty of it myself when I was in the Marines, filling out ballots, absentee, finding an R next to a name, checking the box, not knowing anything else. But I don't think that's done anything to help the country, for sure.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm not giving my allegiance to any political party, because their agenda is always changing.
That's right.
The Constitution hasn't changed. If anybody thinks that our elected officials are really the cream of the crop in America, they're out to do us all good, they're the best that we've got, they haven't been watching the news, which is already slanted.
That's right.
But it might be a good idea to start paying attention to exactly what kind of trouble a lot of our elected officials are in.
Right.
Because the same trouble that they're in, if I had been in trouble for some of the things that they've been caught for, I would be in Leavenworth for the rest of my life because I'm a member of the armed forces.
Yeah.
They should be held accountable.
Yeah.